Hello guys, and now I'm going to show you another chess game. And this one was won mostly on psychology near the end, rather than logic. I'll explain later. Now, here White does an apparently really stupid move. Not quite, that isn't the stupid move yet. Black moved to the only place they could. Now White appears to do a very stupid move. And move the queen out the way for no apparent reason. Black can't believe their luck. There is a rook there for the taking, and black then takes the white rook. The question is, was that a good idea? The honest truth is we'll never really know if it was down to playing against a computer, but because I was playing against a person, they were more likely to act based on psychology rather than logic. They're more likely to act upon thinking they're playing a game of Monopoly rather than a game of chess. So rather than ruin the ending, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning and show you the game. I did my favourite opening, H8. They counted it slightly. Just a minute, I'm about to sneeze. I was actually, but I don't know, I just managed to stop it myself. Okay, right, so moved up another pawn. I take their pawn, they take mine. This looks like a possible false mate. They realised that there was a possible false mate, and they stopped it. Didn't want to know what I mean by false mate. This was threatening checkmate. So they had to move a pawn so the king could get out if they had to. I tried the false mate, even though I knew it wasn't one. They then moved down here. I moved another pawn up. I've now pinned the knight. So, notice here that the knight can't move and take my queen because it's pinned by the bishop. They move the king out the way, so my queen is now being threatened. I move a pawn, producing a 4-king check. They move their king to safety. I move the queen out the way, check. They take a pawn. I move the queen, check. They take the other pawn. Not a good idea, so it sort of ruined what I was trying to do, but never mind. The queen again, check. But now, it's actually worked out for the better, because now I can take the rook. So the only way to stop me taking the rook is if they sacrifice their queen, which they're not likely to do. So they move a bishop to try to stop me. I take their queen, their bishop, and if they try to take my bishop with the queen, they'll lose their queen. So they move their bishop for some strange reason. I just take their bishop as well, and they're back to square one again, where now their queen's being threatened. They move their queen out the way. I then move the queen, check. They move their king out the way, check. They move a pawn to block it, thinking they're being clever. They're not. It's now a forking check, but it's not a perfect forking check, and I realised this afterwards. Because they can take my queen, I can take their queen, they can then take my queen. We'll see how it goes. Rather than actually take the queen, I moved it out of the way. I'm not quite sure I did that now, but never mind. Okay. At some point, I could possibly take their bishop when they're not looking. So, but in the meantime, I have to get out of check. Move a pawn. Right, very clever. They've stopped me doing what I wanted to do. I move a pawn up to threaten their queen. The knight out the way. I move a bishop. I then take their knight. Now I've got check. I move the knight. Let them take a pawn. In a minute, I'm thinking I might threaten them with a forking check. There. And there. They move their queen up. I do exactly that. But rather than do that, I then move the queen ready. They then move their bishop. This is a double check. Here you'll notice that both the knight and the king are attacking the king, and because of that the queen cannot take the knight, because if it does, it's still in check with the queen. So the king has to move. And I didn't notice it at the time, but I think there's a checkmate here. But I don't think I noticed it at the time. I'm going to try it now, because I didn't spot it. Yes, checkmate. But I didn't spot it at the time. So I moved the pawn up. I took my knight. I moved the queen. Check. They moved a bishop to stop it. I move a pawn up. Check. They cannot take the pawn. They have no choice but to go back. But what's really annoying is this bishop. So I'm going to give it a trap. This is going to psychology. I want to trick them into taking the rook to move the annoying bishop out of the way. Will they fall for it? I'll show you that again. I moved my queen somewhere that seems fairly harmless at the moment. They couldn't believe their luck and fell for the trap. Now I did later work out there was a way out of the trap that I'd laid them, but more on that in a minute. Now I take the pawn. They have no choice but to go back. Now they have two choices. They can offer a queen exchange, or they can move their king. To certain doom. I then move the rook up. Check. There is only one place they can move to. And now, what some people would do, some people would hit, in this position might be greedy and do a rook exchange. So they might take the rook and then allow the king to take that rook. I didn't. Instead, I move the queen, checkmate. So how could they have got out of it? There was only one way of getting out of it, and that was when it was here. They could have done this and offered a queen exchange. However, if there was another way around it, I could get out of it if I didn't want to do that and do check. We would then move the king here. And I could start mopping up. No, I couldn't. And I could do something like this. I'm not saying it's the best thing to do. Check. They could then move down here. Check. And they might go something like there. And that would be checkmate, but there would be perhaps some ways they could have got out of it if they tried. So, for example, instead of moving there, they could move there. And it would just extend it. In some way, it would extend it. So, you know, I didn't take too long on this, so there was a way of them carrying on with the game somehow. If they'd offered a queen exchange. Obviously, there's also a solution where... Just a minute. Where... the queen does get taken. And then it's a matter of bishop versus knight, pretty much. Then the king would probably move here. Then it could start mopping up pawns. Oh yes, black would have to move, sorry. So, black could then move there. Move there. Black might move a piece here. That might move there. I mean, as I said, this. I mean, it was just to extend the game, and so then it becomes essentially about a knight versus a bishop, essentially. But anyway, I'm not going to play it to the end because I'm playing against myself, and it's, you know, you can't play fairly if you're playing against yourself. So anyway, that was the actual end. So there you go, guys. Won due to psychology. The psychology was that my opponent was greedy and took a rook. And the other psychology was that when they did have a way out of it, which would mean losing their queen and doing a queen exchange, they didn't want to do a queen exchange because they wanted to keep their queen because they thought it was a valuable piece. Even though they didn't realise at that point in the game that the queen was worth absolutely nothing at that point in the game. Because if you kept it where it was, and you didn't risk a queen exchange, the game was already lost. And that was the only way of continuing the game. But they just wanted to keep their queen on the board, move their king to what they thought was safety, but was then very soon a checkmate. So, thanks for watching, guys. Bye!